Hello and welcome to Freedom Frequencies YouTube channel. I'm Sharon Glover, also known as the Frequency Phoenix, and I'm really excited today to be talking to my friend Sue Bayley. And we've known each other for 11, 12 years. It's a time, and I know you, Sue, as Sue. You're my friend Sue. We met doing the Interfaith training. In 2008 I started, and you was a mentor there, and you're also known as the Autistic Whisperer, and I would love to know more about my friend Sue, the Autistic Whisperer. So we could talk about anything today, but I'm going to dive in here because this is it's a really curious topic to me, because we've had some conversations recently, and you've seen light bulbs go on in me as I've been recognizing people around me that have autistic traits, and you know, I don't know how that works. I don't know how our diagnosis works. I've also got friends with young ones who've just recently had diagnoses as well, so I'm just really interested in all things neurodiverse. So please tell me some stuff.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably break down this little moment into three parts. One is pre-diagnosis, one is around the time of the diagnosis, and one is how to reconfigure yourself and get all the fragments of you back together. And I think that this isn't the time to go deeply into it, although I'd be very happy to reconvene on an ad hoc basis and do that. But pre-diagnosis, I think of it as my trauma trail time. By that, I mean, you know, all about my biography, my biology, my trauma, all the things you'd associate with that. Separation, attachment, totally dissing myself, allowing everybody else to negate me, take advantage of me, run rings around me, all of that sort of stuff. And that began to change when I met Clive, when I was 24, and as you know, I'm now in my 60s. And gradually, knowing that I was loved and secure, as much as anyone can ever be secure, I began delving into all the shadowy stuff that I was very aware of, but had always been too scared. By that I mean the first time somebody told me to listen to a meditation, I had to have Clive in the room. God knows what I thought would be inside me, you know, but I couldn't go in. I couldn't go in because I didn't know what was in there. I knew what I'd lived through, but I didn't know what was in there. And pre-diagnosis, I attempted to live a neurotypical life, which you can't do if you're neurodiverse, because it trips you up all over the place, and you don't understand why. I didn't understand why I found it hard to keep friendships. I didn't understand why I found it hard to make myself understood and to be understood. And I didn't know why at a dinner party or in a gathering more than 2 or 3 people, I didn't know the rules of the game. I didn't know how to connect. Even, you know, game of charades or something like that, I didn't know how to do that, because I was having to pretend, and I couldn't pretend. So I was having to act something to convey a word. What? can't do that. And I used to have meltdowns. And I'd never guess the answer in charades, because I never would be put in that position, even if I knew the answer. So the diagnosis came from a very interesting scenario. In my day job, I'm a careers advisor. I wear lots of other hats, which I'm sure we can pick up later. But in my day job, I'm a careers advisor, and I work with the hardest to reach. And on this particular occasion, this is in 2005. I was with somebody who'd gone through a miscarriage, and who had been told she was dyslexic, but was petrified of finding out. So I stuck my hand up for going to the diagnosis with her. And initially, it was a 20-minute test on a computer. She was petrified of doing it. So I said, well, I'll do one. So I sat next to her. She did her thing. I did my thing. Obviously, we didn't communicate. And at the end of it, she got confirmed dyslexic, and I got a spiky profile that the person who was witnessing the test had never seen before and just didn't know what to do with. So she sent me for tests for 8 hours one day, which cost me 300 quid in 2005. And I know when it came to a point of testing one thing and I had to have a go at a Rubik's Cube, I had a full 2-year-old tantrum. As old as I was, I just was shown something and I had no idea even how to do the first 2 moves, let alone how to do the whole cube. And that obviously told them something. I don't know what it told them, but it told them whatever they needed to see. And I came out with a diagnosis of non-verbal learning disorder, which is like what it says, non-verbal learning disorder, right, or disability. It's like what you say on the tin. So I'm very eloquent, I've been told verbally. And ironically, I think it's irony, if ever I'm upset, I go mute. So for me, it's all about expression, and I don't read body language. So, and I don't see pictures when I shut my eyes. I'm told that when people have a story read to them, they see the characters and they can imagine the contents of the story sort of playing out before them. It's completely black. It's as black as the edges of this computer screen. So apparently that's got a name. I don't know what it is. Sorry, I'm losing my thread now. Prompt me.
It was at the I interrupted you when you were talking. You said that you got the NVP diagnosis. So
conversely, it means that anything that isn't verbal, I've got a weakness, but it's compensated for by my strong empath and my highly sensitive nature. So I get the messages, but I don't get them from reading people's faces. So somebody can put on a mask and my body will feel that it's not congruent, but it won't know why. Which is how I've been deceived in the past. So yeah, so in this particular, that's how I knew I had NVLD, and I would call it, Ted McGrath speaks of the call and the pit moment, and I would say that was my pit moment. That was the moment that sent me back to my original wound, which was when, as a 3-year-old child, I was scribbling on the walls, and not just the odd little scribble, I mean, wherever there was a blank space. And obviously my family didn't like it, and I got severely chastised. And that didn't work for me either, because basically I made the decision to give myself a gagging order and to get myself out of there. And I became a selective mute, I think I actually did that to myself, and the ed psych removed me to live with my great grandmother. That's a whole other story, but you know, so I think my diagnosis and my 3-year-old child are very closely kin to what I want to do in the future, and they're very kin to me trusting that 3-year-old child to have the strength and the guts to make me do things like speak to you now that the adult in me wouldn't want to do. The adult in me isn't about ego and getting on YouTube, but my kid is saying, come on, do it, Sharon, talk to Karen's child, you know. So I'm at my inner child, if you like, is talking to your inner child.
Oh, we're gonna have a right laugh.
No, do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
they can do it. And then I guess the post-diagnosis, I started looking. In fact, an Interfaith Minister friend was on the committee of the Steiner School and Steiner School somewhere, and she told me about like a Steiner hospital. It isn't really a hospital, it's more like you go there for, well, I went there for 5 days and I paid 30% and charity paid the rest. And I had 24-hour round access to art, dance, sort of speech, talking about my situation for 5 days, and realized that expressing myself and moving and talking to others helped me. So I then went on to train in various modalities so that I had those skills to hold other people. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'm just a bit wow, because obviously I didn't know this part of your story. So before pre-24 and pre that test, what was you thinking? Like, you didn't know about any diagnosis.
I was 47 when I got diagnosed.
Right, but at 27, no, 24, was it when you went with the friend for the diagnosis for?
No, I was 47.
Oh, you was 47, right, okay.
He was 24.
Still, yeah, before, even worse, like before 47, you just knew you operated different but had no understanding why. Yeah. Wow. I'm speechless. I mean, how did you function in the world? What did you do? What were your coping strategies?
Well, I didn't really have any, which is why I got severely bullied, which is why people at secondary school didn't like my love of learning. So sometimes they'd put my homework in the shower and turn the taps on and it would turn to paper mushy, which is why people used to stand behind doors and grab my hair, put it under a desk and sit on it, which is why they followed me on the way home and taught me, saying I didn't have a daddy to beat them up, so they were just going to continue. They're just a few examples.
Wow, gosh.
And then when I was older, Clive saw me once nearly get abducted into a car by a Middle Eastern guy, but I actually bounced off the car. I've been held upside down in a so-called relationship out of a window. I mean, I've got so many stories just because I didn't read the signs. I didn't have the capacity to know. Until I met Clive, I didn't really know. My body would tell me something was wrong, because I've always had that strong intuition, but I didn't know how to get out of it or what to do.
Yeah.
So I cured it.
Mm. And you wouldn't have had people to talk to, because we know through, like, our relationship now has been post awareness and knowing about therapy, and knowing that just talking to somebody and having the identification and somebody to nod along with you and understand what you're feeling and where you're coming from is such a huge thing. So that I can't imagine what that kind of loneliness in that must have been like. And thank goodness for Clive. So I know Clive as well, but I don't know too much about your journey together. Obviously, when you met each other, you were 47, and now you've gone to the Steiner and you've had your time there, and you've obviously realised a lot.
I'm 24, so that might.
Oh, that's where I got confused. You met Clive when you was 24.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
So at 24 is when I started to feel okay. So there's two people in this lifetime that have loved me unconditionally. One was my great grandmother who brought me up, and one is Clive. And in both scenarios, I've thrived, and I've done things to grow and to offset my scenario, my natural state. But before that, I looked for love in all the wrong places, and yeah, just got tripped up emotionally, socially, sexually, psychologically, financially.
So in your learning about yourself, so the first was that test, and then the Steiner 5-day experience, which must have been mind-blowing.
It was, because it was basically, I'd got my diagnosis. I'd also, around the same time, got told at work that they were going to put me through capacity to see whether I could do my job, which is basically when you approach tasks slightly differently, and some managers see it as a gift and some managers want you to be more uniform, or to medicate yourself to get back in the right line. And my message to them was, you don't need to be fixed, you're intrinsically okay. People need to accept that there's more than one way of going around a circle. But I had to be really careful, because obviously you don't knock your own you don't knock your own employer. So, and I wouldn't want to now, but do you know what I mean? That's not the way to do it. I think that experience was a blessing, but there was people there that had cancer, there were people there that needed an alternative to sort of schizophrenic type stuff and bipolar stuff. The real motley crew of people. And then there was me. And again, I had no idea how I fitted into that lot either. But obviously, I was severe enough to qualify for the help. But I think and actually it was after my year one as an interfaith student. So I'd just done my year one, retreat, and got through the year one and got into year two. And then I meet this client at work, get my diagnosis, and then work say, I'm not sure if you're the right shape for this job. And some of that might be that I was bringing too much of my newfound knowledge through interfaith into, trying to make my job what it wasn't. I don't know, but I obviously had a part to play in that. And I came out of it sort of thinking, well, I feel better when I'm wrapped up, because the sort of things they'd do is they'd lay you on a bed of wax, hot molten wax, smelled like butterscotch, and put you in a big duvet. And so you had that real swaddling feeling that you'd get, when you're having a tight hug. Or they'd do eurythmy or veil painting or talking or sleeping or good nutrition or walks in nature. There was a whole bunch of different things. And I realised that all those things helped me move forward. So the next thing I did when I came out was look to train as a Tai Chi teacher with Jason Chan, who I think you know. But after the first year, my fear of driving to Manchester became acute. I couldn't do it. And so I had to give that up. And I also found that when I was doing the Tai Chi in the room with Jason, even if I had my eyes shut, I could do the form perfectly. But when I was on my own, I couldn't remember the form. I couldn't remember the sequence. So I couldn't teach it if I couldn't hold the sequence when I was on my own. So that led me to learning NIA, which is a mixture of dance, martial and healing arts. And over 10 years, I went from a white belt to a black belt. But again, when a dear friend of mine passed away in 2019, and she asked me to pick up a couple of her classes as she was dying, I did. But again, I stopped after about 4 months because I realized that I was actually inventing the choreography about halfway through the routine because I just couldn't remember it.
Right.
Whereas if I'm doing it, even with one person in the room, even if I'm not looking at them, it's like my body or space tunes in and then I can do it. So it's like, well, I don't know what body it is, but one of the layers of your bodies, it tunes in and I just do it. I don't even have to use my physical eyes. I just tune in and I'm perfect. But again, when I'm on my own and I haven't got that sensory contact, it doesn't work, or it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So then the person who created NIA, a lady called Debbie Rosas, who was severely dyslexic, and she used to be a medical intuitive. And she was a great artist. And I saw one of her paintings and thought, I want to be able to express myself like that. And I didn't do anything about it because I knew that I couldn't even draw a teacup without freaking out, because I can't take something and replicate it. I can only draw it up from within. So I shelved that, and instead I trained as an embodied relational therapist, which it's all about the dance of life. So if you take what we're doing now, we're conversing as friends, professional, peers, blah, blah, blah. And even in this conversation where I'm trying to be completely open with you, I know inside me, I'm like really wanting to have no separation and completely engage with you, no hold barred. But I also, in the background, I've got, well, you do have a day job. And if anybody in the council sees this, blah, 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 blah. So it's about the dance between a human not wanting to be separate and wanting to almost be completely engaging with the other, and also stepping back and protecting the other. And it's that relational dance that we get trained in. And I always remember we had peer assessments at the end of the year to go into the second year. And to manage cognitively, and how does Sue manage as an autist to pick up what's going on in the client's field. And the guy running the session said, well, one thing Sue's learned that helps her with this is that nobody needs to be fixed. They are intrinsically whole. It's just a matter of them believing it, and she holds space for them until they realise that for themselves, or something like that.
Mm.
And I guess Sue's learning edge is to get together more with the theory and understanding the process. And your edge is to try not to fix people like you've been doing for 25 years.
Mm.
So, okay, fair enough. But during that, I learned, again, there were dance therapists and art therapists and psychosynthesis therapists and blah, 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 and who were doing additional training. And I realized that this art thing was coming up again. So that's when I trained as the intentional creativity facilitator, as you know, because you've seen my art. And that's when things really landed for me. It's like I felt I'd gone full circle. I felt I didn't need to do any more learning. People said to me when I completed my interfaith training and the mentoring, you don't need to do anything else now. And I couldn't believe it. But I don't think I do need to do any more learning now. I think I need to apply that learning. And as our dear friend Sammy Lindell said the other day, you need to produce more and consume less. So every time I look at my wall, as I'm doing now, I know that inner 3-year-old has been seen and heard. And I know that she'll be the one that says, talk to her. No, you don't want anything to do with her. You know, it's like, not that I turn down any offers to be helpful, but I'm going to choose my people wisely.
Mm. So in producing more, and hearing you talk about your inner 3-year-old, there's two kind of questions that are coming up. How would you, in your producing more, support parents with children with autism? Or
okay, I think that this is the edge that I'm doing at the moment, which is suddenly realize that if I actually, and this is like a work in progress, it's not completely landed yet, but I guess if I speak it, I'll have to do it. So how I wrote my 2 books, because somebody was like this over, you've got to get something, you've got to get something out there, and how you are at the moment. So so in a good way. So I guess if I were to take the models I had pre-diagnosis, and the trauma of being diagnosed, and the journey towards self-acceptance, self-belief, self-mastery that I've done quite a lot towards, and collapse time to help them have tips to how I've gone about it, either by knowing so career-wise, it's about knowing your natural skills and talents. So with a parent, it's about cultivating those natural skills and talents very early, and not trying to make them like their brother or sister.
Mm.
They are who they are, and to really recognize that, and to build that, and to nurture that, which I had with great granny, but not very much else. So I know the difference. And then with like the movement stuff, often people that are stuck, frustrated with life, frustrated with something they can't do, angry at the world because they're different, angry at the people that scare them, blah, 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 is if they can sort of, I don't want to say dance it out, but be physically active, even if it's only punching the air and kicking and shaking, you know, it's like get it out of your emotions, get it out of your body. You know, if you think about an animal, I'm thinking of it like Bambi at the moment, but you know, if you think of an animal that's scared, it sort of pulls itself up and then shakes and then carries on. Human beings don't do that, they suppress it.
Ah, yeah, good example.
And then they suppress it, and then they wonder why shit happens, and their energy plummets, and they need a little white box.
Yeah. So yeah, what are your tools then? What are your coping strategies?
So for me, and again, like with the learning how to encourage a child to express themselves, you know, whether it's with hammer and nails or a paintbrush or a pencil or string or metal, you know, let them, if they can't always say what they want to do, but you suddenly find them, you know, plaiting. I mean, when I was small and the doctor used to come to the house, I would hide under this table, and it was an old table, and it had like newspaper and then a cloth, and then the proper cloth, and the middle cloth had lots of little tassels, and I would hide under there and plait the tassels. Well, if I was with a child who was doing something random like that, I would try to understand why they were under there, what they got from plaiting the tassels, and just try to open it up so that that's more out in the open.
Yeah, rather than get out from under that table and do play with Lego or something.
Yeah. And like, I'm thinking of one child that I know who, you know, whenever she gets into reading mythology books, you know, the classic kid lying on their bed, you know, reading mythology books or reading like Greek mythology. There's been a few films, I can't think of the name of it, but it's where there's a hero and hero stories and stuff like that. And her mother thinks, well, what the hell is she doing that? She should be out, you know, collecting the chicken eggs or something. She has absolutely no idea why that's beneficial. But I would unpick with that child, what is she learning from those characters, and are they giving her courage, or, you know, are they comforting to her, or, you know, what's going on? Why solace in that book? As opposed to, you are a bloody lazy kid, and you need to go and get the chicken eggs, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then again, you know, we both know about the little white box, and I think it's like helping people build their energy. Interesting, because that's what I'm beginning to see, because as you know, in my day job, I work with 12 to 20-year-olds much more than I work with the parents. But actually, the whole family. So when you've got a parent with a muddle or a kid with a muddle, actually the whole family.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you might focus on a parent or a child, but at some point you need to tune into the other one. It's like, it's not a surprise to me or you, because if you don't I mean, my little white box work, I'm calling inner ecology. So, you know, people bang on about outer ecology, but for me, since I went to that retreat and started looking after my inner ecology more, I can cope more with the outside world. Yeah. And yeah, it's really hard to get people to see that. I mean, mind you, I was 47 or 8 before I started realizing it. So, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? People will only kind of get the message when they get the message, won't they?
Yeah, and I basically, I was, that far away from a full nervous breakdown, which is why I got admitted. But, it was like, to go through the first year of interfaith training, as has its moments. And then on top of that, to be diagnosed with autism or in the spectrum. And on top of that, be told by work within the same sort of 8 weeks that actually we're questioning your capability. I'm still in the same job, by the way. So, which is, 16 years later. So obviously I worked that one out. But, it was all at one go. It's not surprising something gave way.
Yeah. That's kind of also the magic, we'll call it magic, the weaving that happens when you ended up on the interfaith training. How did you get there?
Okay, so I have a friend called Madge Bray, who used to be a social worker. She won European Women of the Ward 1 year for her work during the Bosnian War. She sings in Doric, and she sings in Georgian, like country near Russia. This is so surreal. If you really want to know, I was having my hair cut in Shrewsbury, and the person cutting my hair used to foster children. And somehow we were talking about childhood, and I obviously shared something from my childhood. I have no idea what. And she said, "You need to talk to Madge Bray. I'm going to organise it that she has her hair coloured every so often. And if you have your hair cut at a similar time, I'm going to put you two together and you can talk to her while her hair is brewing, so to speak, whatever hair does with colour." And so we did. And I started going to her house for lunch and for dinner, and then it was overnight stops, because that was when I actually first started to crack open about all the stuff I'd held pre-diagnosis. And she persuaded me to go and have psychotherapy, which I did for 9 years. And then she moved up to a village near, what's it called? Findhorn. And after she moved to Findhorn, near Findhorn, she said that I could go and stay with her, and we'd go to Findhorn one day. And Clive drove us up there, and we were standing in the main hall singing, because you can't not sing if you're with Madge. It sort of becomes part of the territory. Not that I sing anywhere else. And I sort of felt a need to really own my intention to leave a legacy. And she said, "Right, we'll come back at Easter. There's a week gig going on at Findhorn, like plenary sessions in the morning and workshops in the afternoon, or the other way around, I can't remember." And one of those workshops was the person who founded Interfaith.
Okay.
And at the end of it, I went up to Miranda and said, "I don't know what you do or who you are, but you press every prejudice in my body. And I want to learn from you, because you make me sort of..." And she said, "Right, you need to train as Interfaith Minister then, if you want to learn from me." I said, "Done."
You want to have your buttons butted, buttons pushed.
Yeah, I mean, she knows because I said it to her. I'm not saying anything I didn't say to her. I was just like, I don't, you look what, you look so perfect, you sound so perfect, you've got your shit together, what have you got to worry about, sort of thing. And then when we learned about us, well, I learned about her story, which she openly has told people in Interfaith about her story, but it's not for here, I then realised, well, actually, you got that wrong, kiddo, didn't you?
Mm.
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
Can't tell book by cover.
No. Yeah, because people present in a certain way, it doesn't mean that they've.
Yeah. Well, I find that really hard because who I am is who I am. I can't do this present thing. I don't, Clive's always saying to me, a lot of people, on Facebook, they're not what they appear and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that's true. Well, I know it's true. But I am who I am. And I don't know how to not be that. I don't understand that. I don't what do you mean they're not who they are? How the bleep do you do that? I have no idea how to do that. I don't know even, I just don't understand. I just don't well, why would you not be who you are? It's like, even with my muddles, I was who I was.
Yeah.
Not very effective, but I was who I was.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about one of the greatest lesson I got from the interfaith training was it's okay to be me. Actually, I'm okay. So I don't know who I was before that, or I wasn't aware that I was pretending or presenting as somebody else. But that was the biggest lesson, because I mean, if you're okay with that, then life's okay. Well, I would have thought so, but yes.
Yeah.
So what are your tools today? What you've learned a lot. What are your go-tos? And I know you specifically work or like to work around anxiety and autism. So even though people may not identify with autism or being on a spectrum or neurodivergence, then most people can identify with anxiety.
Yeah. So I have two main go-to tools. First is this little gorilla tag. There's a little gorilla tag. And if you Google gorilla tag, it will come up. But basically, it's something I pay monthly for, and it helps. It's frequency led, is where I start struggling. It's frequency led, and basically it helps the left brain and the right brain work together, because I'm very right brain and very little left brain. But since I've been doing it, which I've been doing it for probably a couple of years now, even I can see that I'm a bit more in the middle. Well, I'm in the middle for me, so you can imagine how much out there I was. I'm more in the middle for me, but
we've all got our own middle.
Yeah, I'm way out there for some people, but I'm more in the middle for me. And then of course I've got my little white box. My little white box. My little white box. This little white box was introduced to me by Sharon, and I wriggled and tiggled all the way to even talking about it, let alone using it, because you talk about frequencies and information fields and quantum physics, conversations like that. It's like a science lesson or a physics lab. I just want to get out of here. But she basically offered to lend me one, and I accepted her offer, and I think I mentioned earlier that I'd given up Tai Chi because driving to Manchester completely freaked me out. I was okay till I got within about 15 miles of Manchester. And there's one particular part where roads come in from like Leeds and, oh, I can't remember, but they come loads of, like, it gets much busier and more lanes. And I'd be driving, like, saying prayers, crying, snot down my face, sweating, you know, like, just get me to Tai Chi, you know. And I just got to the point, I can't do this. And people know at work that for years I've struggled with driving. Some people have even driven behind me on the way to somewhere and say, yes, you struggle with driving. So, and you know, there's times when I've come home from work and I just will lie on the sofa, put a blanket on me and almost shake. Well, I tried driving with said little white box on me, and then I put it in the boot. Then I left it at home, and then I put it in my handbag, not switched on. But just the fact I knew it was there, and I could either, as soon as I got home or as soon as I got to work, put it on, meant that I knew there was an end time to my anxiety. And over a few weeks, maybe a month, my boss noticed a difference, my husband noted a difference. I was feeling a bit lighter, but I didn't know why. I wasn't quite so dreading the journey. And then I had a couple of scenarios where the car let me down and literally ground to a halt on a busy roundabout at 8:45 in the morning. And I'd get pushed off the roundabout and wait on a busy A road for about an hour for AA. And that would normally have sent me out of my body into the ether, and I just managed the situation. And I got to work much later, and my boss was expecting one sort of Sue to walk in, and he didn't get it, and he didn't understand why. And I just said, it's this little white box. That's about as much as he got told.
So you've got your little white box that helps today, yeah, with your anxiety.
Paintbrush and my pen.
Your paintbrush and your pen.
Yeah, I've also got my go-to people, and I've got my private groups that I belong to based on interests. And I sort of sit with myself in quiet time and realise just how much soul shit I've actually managed to alchemize, and think, well, I've done quite a lot, I can do more.
Amazing. Yeah, and they're so important, those things that you've mentioned there, because it's never just one thing, is it? You know, if we're sharing today in the hope, and I hope these chats inspire people to add to their toolbox different tools. You know, don't suffer with your anxiety, or don't suffer with your loneliness. So by us sharing those things, we'll help somebody else. And
you know, like, I think for me the biggest tool is know yourself. If you know yourself, then you've got more understanding of others. If you know what your natural strengths are. So I wouldn't look at anything, one, if it didn't link to my natural strengths, which are helping and creating, creativity. And I wouldn't look at anything if it didn't link to my legacy. And I wouldn't look to anything if the 3-year-old child said no. But to get to that, you need to have done the inner work or be helped to do the inner work, which I can hold that space.
You can indeed. And we will have links to your work down below. And you're actually creating a group for us, aren't you? Because in having these conversations about, I don't even know if I'm
not letting me get away without, are you?
I'm not letting you get away with it, no, because just in that small group that we had, there was like 5 people that put their hand up to identifying with the things that you're talking about. And it doesn't sound, you know, there's nobody with us as a like severe experience as you had as a person without a diagnosis there. I mean, you know, I hope those people can get help and support like way sooner. And I mean, is that happening now? People are getting support and a diagnosis earlier?
I think they do. I don't have any part of that, but I think they do. I do think that the system struggles. And I do think that there's still stigma. It's almost like a grief that a parent can go through if their child isn't normal.
Yeah.
Whether they're prepared to face that grief and help the child, or be so lost in what the neighbours might think, or the school might think, and they try and manage the status quo as if nothing's wrong.
Yeah. So yes, you've got our group coming. That'll be a small group, but I you know, like those stereotypes and you know, as a movement, you know, this does need to change, doesn't it? You know, people need to be celebrated for their.
I just feel that people could see. I actually think people that are different, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, biologically, blah, 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 blah. They're here to stretch the status quo. They're here to break through perceptions. And they're pioneers.
Yeah.
And they have a hard time, but they help others in once they've done their own inner work. Otherwise they're chaotic. Somebody once said to me, I said, well, if I do my inner work, then I won't remember what it was like and I'll be no use to anybody. And they just said, you'll be better use to anybody because you will never forget. You'll just not be so desperate about it. And I haven't forgotten, and I'm not so desperate about it. So, you know, but I had a real fear of letting all that, you know, this is my badge, this is who I am. No, yeah, that's who conditioning and society turned you into. It's not who you are. You are intrinsic spark of divine light in a body or around a body or however it works. And you're not that.
Not that. So this channel is called Freedom Frequencies, and I've had that name for a long time because through my journey and my work I recognize the power of frequencies and how if they change, we change. And that could be the words that we use in an oil that we're using in the house, or music that we listen to, whatever. There's frequencies everywhere and we use them in different ways. And that was even before the little white box came along, which is like all about frequencies. So we've got an F word there, and the freedom is another F word. So I've got this project forming called the F word. So I was wondering, what is your favourite F word?
Well,
You can swear.
the first thing that went through my head is my 3-year-old child saying, a 3-year-old child that's saying to anybody that's hurting anybody who's different, "Fuck you." I'm like, I can't say that.
Yes, you can.
I just did. Thank you. So yeah, but the energy behind that isn't so much about being vulgar, but it's that absolute disdain. How very dare you? How very dare you strike my ass with a bloody poker because I won't take telling? How very dare you? And it's like, who are you? You know, it's like, and I can't every time. It's like, why is it that most of society, you know, looks at what somebody can't do? They don't look at what they can do. You know, if there's a review for a kid in school, there's piles of paper this deep come into the review, you know, and you're like, well, I have been known to bang the desk and say, "We're here for the child." And I mean, yeah, bang the desk. I've only done it a few times in my life. You know, it's like, how dare somebody rob somebody else of their blueprint that they then have to take 50 years to find? How dare they shame and ridicule another because they're difficult to manage?
Yeah.
So that's all wrapped up in that word.
Tell me again then, what's your favourite F word? Fuck you.
I didn't expect that to come out.
True though, isn't it? It's just truth. I mean,
it's like, how dare you? Just how dare you? With, you know, how dare any person turn somebody to a point that they spend 50 years of their life searching for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just thank goodness we've got you and people like you that are speaking up for people now that haven't been able to, and hopefully, you know, that blueprint will be.
And that doesn't, it's not, I'm not trying to knock the people, because often the people who do that is because, you know, they've had bad stuff happen to them. But the cycle's got to be broken.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not about me blaming or in turn want to point a finger at them, but I just want the pattern to stop.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm not going to get a deluge of professional people telling me, you know, how very dare you. But I just want from my deepest soul the pattern to get broken in my lifetime.
Yeah. Well, if anybody challenges you on having a statement of fuck you, then fuck you again. There's no reply to that anyway, so yeah. So thank you, Sue, and you're my first person here on this channel, so I'm deeply grateful. Yeah, I'm deeply grateful to you for being you, Sue, in all your magnificence. I love you. You're an amazing human.
I love you too, kiddo.